Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, the President and General Counsel of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country in the courtrooms of America. Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
The Florida court ruling on homosexual adoption will harm children if it's not reversed. I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel and dean of Liberty University School of Law. Joining me is Matt Barber, director of cultural affairs for Liberty Counsel and associate dean for the law school. Matt, a district court of appeal, there are 5 of them in Florida, one of them down in the South Florida area, ruled that the Florida law that goes back to 1977 that bans homosexual adoption violates the state Equal Protection Clause. Now, this case can be appealed to the Florida Supreme Court. If this ruling stands, there's no question that children will be harmed. We have been defending this law for a number of years. In fact, the most recent ruling on this case was in 2004 at the Federal Court of Appeals, where the same law was challenged, and this law was upheld against a equal protection federal constitutional challenge. Liberty Counsel was directly involved in that and will be directly involved in this case as well. This is not the first challenge to the case. It's the only successful challenge to the case so far on the Court of Appeals.
Matt, I don't know what it is, but we're seeing in Florida and California and elsewhere a rash of these cases surrounding the homosexual issue, where judicial activism is running rampant. Now, we don't just throw this term judicial activism around lightly. Let me explain a little bit what that is. The Founding Fathers, when they drafted the Constitution, the most brilliant document ever put together from a public policy standpoint, the longest existing Constitution, the shortest Constitution in history, there are those who embrace a constitutionalist or originalist viewpoint of the Constitution that says it is to be interpreted with original intent. Then there are those who, such as this judge in Florida, such as this 3rd District Court of Appeals panel, that seem to adopt the idea that of Charles Evan Hughes, former Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, who said, quote, "We are under a constitution, but the Constitution is what the judges say it is." Well, Matt, if the Constitution is whatever the judges say it is, then the Constitution is nothing at all.
Then we're not under a constitution.
We're not under a constitution.
No, we're under
a
arbitrary, judiciocracy. That's a good way to put it. We're under an arbitrary decision process. If you go back to the whole concept of the rule of law, I spoke at Seminole State College down in Florida during Constitution Week, and I talked about the American Constitution and the rule of law. And I went through the history of why this is so important, because you have the 1215 Magna Carta, where the King, John, put himself under the rule of law. You have the 1644 with Lex Rex and Samuel Rutherford, and his book, Lex Rex, The Law is King, ultimately was influential on the concept of the rule of law and the idea that our rights come from God, and those are higher powers, higher laws that the magistrates must protect and they can't change. All of that influenced our notion of the rule of law, and we have a constitutional system that put our rulers, including our judges, under the law. The Constitution is the people's contract with America, and you can't unilaterally change that contract unless the people consent to do so. And here we have judges that look at this adoption issue, and first of all, they say that it's an equal protection violation. The problem is that homosexual couples, homosexual individuals are not similarly situated to somebody who's not engaging in homosexuality. There is a significant difference between somebody who's actively engaging in homosexual behavior and somebody who's not with respect to children. Adoption is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not a private act. It's a public act. And we have an interest in protecting the well-being of these children, and homosexual behavior is deleterious and negative to the well-being of those children.
Absolutely, and the preponderance of studies bear out that reality. And Matt, this is ideology driven. This is an ends justify the means act of really judicial a tyranny here. This is not constitutionally driven. To suppose for an instant that those who drafted and added the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution would have felt that to disallow two men who are engaging in what at the time would have been called a crime against nature, to prohibit them from adopting some poor child, that somehow violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, they would have laughed their smocks off. They would have said that they couldn't have even conceptualized such nonsense, let alone felt that, again, there was some phantom constitutional right for Adam and Steve to adopt some child.
Well, and in Florida, for example, although it does allow single parent adoption, so an individual who is single can adopt, somebody might say, well, what's the difference between that and homosexual adoption? Well, there's a significant difference.
Sure.
Because the law in Florida at its core prefers that children have the opportunity to be placed in a home with a mom and a dad. So obviously the preference is to place children in homes with a mother and a father. Florida, however, does allow single-parent adoption. But single-parent adoption is fundamentally different than homosexual adoption, because in the single-parent adoption, you still have the potential that household, that child would be raised at some point in a home with a mom and a dad. In fact, I have a friend who was a single woman who adopted, and then later, after adopting two children, then was married, is married, and has a family now with her husband. So it does present the potential of having a home with a mother and father. Moreover, single-parent adoption does not have an antipathy or an adversity to the opposite or missing gender. Homosexual adoption, as a policy matter, does two things. First of all, it says children don't need moms and dads,
Yep.
that moms and dads are completely irrelevant to the well-being of children. And secondly, it prohibits that child from ever having the opportunity of having a mom and a dad. Unlikely that they will have a mom and a dad unless they stop and change their homosexual behavior. And then, different than single-parent adoption, the single parent is going to have still an attraction and an appreciation for the opposite sex. A homosexual adoption is not only going to eliminate the gender, but also have an adversity to the missing gender in a way that single-parent adoption does not. Not even getting into the health and emotional consequences of homosexuality.
Well, that's and that's an important point, though. Not we are creating here intentionally motherless and fatherless homes, but we also have situations where children are being placed in an environment where bad behavior is being modeled. A report just came out, we talked about it earlier this week, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, indicating that 1 in 5 homosexual males are HIV positive. So you have a kid going into an environment with 2 homosexual males who are at astronomical risk for all form of sexually transmitted disease, 1 in 5 having already contracted HIV/AIDS, and they are modeling this demonstrably destructive behavior, spiritually destructive, emotionally destructive, and unequivocally physically destructive behavior in front of these children. We know, for instance, that young girls who are placed in homes with two homosexual fathers, or two so-called fathers, or two so-called homosexual mothers, that they end up engaging in promiscuous behavior, experimenting with homosexual behavior, because that behavior is being modeled. This is common sense.
You've got Stacy and Biblarts, who are advocates of same-sex marriage, but they still nevertheless acknowledge that girls raised in a home with 2 mothers, 2 lesbians, is going to engage in sexual activity earlier, more experimentally than any other category of a girl, for example, raised in a single mother household, and certainly a girl raised in a household with a mom and a dad. Dad in the household with this girl does delay the onset of and the frequency of sexual behavior. But girls raised in a single parent, you're going to have more frequent sexual activity earlier on. Girls raised in a home with 2 moms, it then just exponentially increases that. There's certainly consequences to homosexuality. Liberty Counsel is going to be continuing to be involved in this case, but pray for this case because it's an important one in Florida. Unlike the bad reporting in the media where you often hear Florida is the only state in the country that bans homosexual adoption. It's not true. In fact, the majority of states continue to ban homosexual adoption, either judicially, by administrative rule, or by statute. Florida is not in the minority, and for good reason. This law needs to be upheld. Continue to pray for it. Come and join Liberty Counsel as we defend the family. Go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, and sign up for our Liberty Counsel Action Grassroots email. Also, you can give an online credit card contribution to this or any other cause of Liberty Counsel right there on the website. Go to lc.org.
You have been listening to Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. Our hope is to encourage and inspire you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedoms. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email update. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.